Destiny 2, The Witch Queen addresses so many of Destiny's biggest problems when it comes to the campaign design and story. So much so that it puts every campaign before it to shame. They finally created a comprehensible story that wasn't filled with fluff and literal fetch quests as core campaign design, and it only took 8 years to get it right.
Thanks for the memories, Guardian. The game is yours to play now. Yours to win or lose. Just don't say I didn't warn you.
Hello and welcome back to part 2 of my Destiny 2 Witch Queen story analysis video. If you haven't seen part 1, click on the link in the top of the description and it will bring you straight to that video. For those sticking around, this is part 8 of my series covering all of the major campaigns in Destiny 2, from the Red War to the Final Shape. This video and every video in this series before and after covers exclusively the gameplay and story. I will not be discussing the lore or other content like the seasonal stories. That will not be touched here. That's for a future video. This is also not a critical analysis of the expansion as a whole, just specifically the campaign. With all that out of the way, let's jump right back into the campaign, starting with Mission 6, The Cunning. Finch has yet another lead. Ikora seems skeptical, but Finch assures there's something here. What's his evidence? Well, a bunch of Scorn are running over into this area, which causes some suspicion, I guess. It's not a lot to work off of, but we'll take what we can get for the moment.
How about a secret underground temple? Because I found one deep in the tunnels there. And guess who it's dedicated to?
Savathun.
Yeah, well, kinda. It's dedicated to Sathona, Savathun before she was a hive god.
You know, Finch, I think we would have appreciated a lot more if you told us about the giant fucking underground temple, because that seems like more pertinent information at the moment than a bunch of Scorn. This area is nothing special, but the aggression of the Scorn mixed with the music creates an honestly intense fight that, while simple, is something I enjoyed a lot. I know the video just started, but take a listen to some of this music. It's just so good. After that really good music, we get this beautiful shot of the temple. The giant pustules looking like the glow of flames below the destroyed parts of towers, and this absolutely perfect framing that reminds me of Anor Londo from Dark Souls 3, just from a framing perspective. Something I've noticed from Bungie is that they've done a really good job with shots like these, revealing giant structures and all. But every single time we see a shot like this, we've been looking up at these huge, grandiose things, whether it's the intimidating aura of the pyramid ships or the Scarlet Keep. We're always looking up at it, showing us the scale of it and how small we really are. Which is why I think it's interesting that this time the reveal shot has us looking down at the temple, almost as a metaphor that we have the upper hand now. I bet there are a few people in the audience who believe it doesn't mean anything, and I don't really agree with that. I believe that the majority of the decisions made with stuff like this is usually intentional, especially ones like this. They are intentional and they have a purpose. Let me know what you think. Maybe the tism is getting me. I don't know. So then we jump down into the depths and raid the temple. And the puzzle here is kind of lackluster. It's just some shooting Witch Queen symbols and that's it. Some light platforming that shouldn't be too hard considering you're not intoxicated. There is some combat that's sprinkled in between shooting the symbols, but I kind of wish there was a little bit more to the puzzle here. We have a stand on the plate to lower the bridge encounter, which is fine. A little lacking, but the Scorn are fun to fight and the music is good. Now we have a boss encounter with a reskinned Trickster Baron, and holy fuck is this boss fight hard. I'm not really sure why it is. There's nothing special about this fight. Maybe it's the enemy density or the map itself, but I've always had issues with the strength of this fight. I don't mind reskin bosses, but I would have really appreciated if we got a new one here. Even if it was just like new headgear or new arms, just something to kind of distinguish the boss fight and make it a bit more interesting is something I would have appreciated and I think would have gone that extra mile. So after the carbon copy is dead, we do a small little puzzle and we grab the worm of Savathun, the same one we separated from her during Season of the Lost, which is bound to have phenomenal information regarding Savathun's plans, since this thing has been around since basically Savathun was created. Something as a side note, why is this shit so easy to get and just out there in the open? You'd think Savathun would want to hide this shit. Like literally, just such an important relic that furthers our plans is just here in broad daylight. Then all of a sudden a fucking Ahamkara appears. I'll admit this is a pretty good twist and something I wasn't expecting. And what do you know, it's not a carbon copy of Riven, it's actually a new design for an Ahamkara. So props on that, Bungie. Good job. Although I will say the fight with the Ahamkara is kind of boring. I wish there was more like shooting the eyes or something like that, or a little bit more of a puzzle to killing this boss. But I'm pretty much fine with how it is. It most certainly took me off guard and was definitely a pretty good twist that I wasn't expecting. I rated 3 dead Cades out of 5. It turns out the Wish Dragon wasn't actually real and was an illusion, and now the temple is falling apart, so we have to escape. And escape we do on a pike escape scene, which is probably one of the best in the entire campaign. There's lots of enemies, literal twists and turns in the terrain, lots of jumps, and the music, as always, is tense as fuck and does a phenomenal job. Again, not just one of the best scenes in the campaign, but in Destiny campaign history in general. And now that we've escaped by the skin of our ass, we get to go to the timeline reflection and look at another one and find out what's up next for Savathun. Only it doesn't work.
What happened? How come we can't get in? Ikora, it didn't work. We couldn't unlock the memory on the worm familiar.
What? Why? What happened?
I'm not sure. We did the same as before, but this time it rejected us.
Ikora tells us to head back to Mars so that she can look at the object immediately. And what do you know? Oh shit! Dad's home, and he's fucking pissed. Ikora hasn't been keeping Zavala updated on what's going on, and now that he knows, he's not too happy. Then Ikora's all like, okay bitch, you never let me do anything on my own, I'm out. And she fucks off. I can kind of understand Zavala's point here. Ever since Cade died, he's been wanting to know what's been going on, because Cade just kind of went off and did his own thing. Didn't tell anyone what was going on, and it got him killed. He's worried about Ikora. Especially when there are so many unknown variables tied to Savathun. We really don't know what she's capable of at all. But at the same time, nothing gets done with red tape and bureaucracy. And as much as I like Zavala, he kind of represents that. He represents that red tape. He represents the, we need to look at all angles before we do anything, and just ends up getting us nowhere. You have to jump into things, you have to take these risks, or else we aren't going to complete the mission at all. Ikora, on her own, bossing around the Guardian, has done a better job getting work done and has found out more information than if we had a giant council deciding what we were doing, what we were allowed to do, and where we were allowed to go. Now, I want you to keep this altercation in the back of your mind because it's going to become relevant later when Ikora comes back and gets her W. So after Ikora fucks off, Eris takes over for the next mission with Zavala acting as Overlord.
Now we have Mission 7, Last Chance. Here we're diving into Savathun's fortress to find a crystal shard from the crystalline prison Savathun was in during the Season of the Lost. This is the second time I've brought up Season of the Lost, so I need to talk about this. Campaigns in Destiny that heavily involve story and plot points from previous seasons need to have a recap or something in the campaign so that people who didn't play it know what the fuck is going on and know what happens and understands what's going on when Bungie mentions these seasons that are no longer in the game. Just have a single mission, maybe 40 minutes long, that includes all of the relevant information to that campaign from the past seasons all put together into one campaign mission. I think that would work a lot better than just expecting people to look it up online. Alright, rant over, let's get back to the mission. Actually, I lied. I want to talk briefly about the visual design of Savathun's fortress. Funny enough, some early concepts for Beyond Light done by Jesse Van Dyck, I don't know, I probably got the name wrong, show some striking similarities to Savathun's fortress itself, and it makes you wonder if these concepts were brought over. I also ran into this bug where the entrance had some random placeholder as a door. I think it had to do with the area not fully loading in or something, but I doubt I'm the first person running into this bug. Either way, I thought it was kind of funny. Eris tells us that the shard of crystal from Savathun Savathun's prison from Season of the Lost could answer some of the questions of how Savathun stole the light. Seeing as this was the last time we saw her, this could be a huge clue into learning how she stole the light. The special mechanic for this mission is killing a Hive Knight, making him drop his sword, and using the sword to break a rock, revealing Deep Sight. I also want to take a little bit more to talk about the placement of the Lightbearer Hive in these combat sections. If you remember from my last video, I mentioned how Lucent Hive presented an engaging combat loop for Destiny 2. The game forces you to use your finisher on the Lucent Hive in order to kill them. Fighting them from afar might not work as well, and being too close with too many enemies around could end up getting you killed. Which is why Bungie was smart and always put the Lucent Hive with other enemies near them. Fighting them one-on-one basically removes any skill or thinking required to kill them. The finisher basically just adds an extra step, but the enemies around you also taking shots at you makes it all that much harder. Especially the Hive grunt enemies who throw the Hive version of Molotovs at you. If you are finishing an enemy and they throw that right in the middle of where you're finishing them, it could get you killed. I know that this is fairly basic, and to a lot of games these mechanics seem fairly baseline, but with Destiny we take all that we can get. This next area, outside of the Apothecary, fucked me raw so hard, so many times throughout my first playthrough. I remember getting so frustrated trying to get through this part of the game, but this time through wasn't nearly as hard. I guess I was just shit. I will say though, this part is much harder than the other areas before it. The enemy density and harder hitting enemies really make it a more difficult encounter. This mission as a whole, funny enough, feels almost like a dungeon, showing us a simple mechanic and iterating on it throughout the mission to make it more interesting. It's very well done and about time. It's actually crazy going back to previous campaigns and noticing just how fucking boring and uninteresting they all are. Like even the campaigns before this that people were calling the best, like the Taken King, the Red War, and Forsaken. These campaigns struggle to have an engaging campaign that actually holds you gameplay-wise. Even Forsaken, which from a gameplay perspective I thought was decent, had a third of my playtime be fetch quests. The Witch Queen has almost none, and they're all side content which is completely optional. Now we get to go inside of the Apothecary, and for this I wanted to give you a little bit of a history lesson. An apothecary or apothecaries are actually people who create drugs and medicines given to doctors and physicians, meaning this place is likely where the Hive learned how to bend and manipulate the light, as confirmed by Eris here.
This is definitely the apothecary wing. Somehow, it feels even creepier in here.
Naturally. You're trespassing on the testing grounds for the Lucent Hive's most wretched experiments. Savathun has always encouraged her wizards to push boundaries of Hive magic. It seems that hasn't changed with the light. Perhaps that corruption has far less to do with the power than the one channeling it.
This area is also very reminiscent of the Scarlet Keep elevator from Shadowkeep, but instead of openings from the enemies where they shoot you from, they're closed off with this sort of casing with a light glow coming from them. Are these other possible experiments the Hive are testing? It's not made completely clear. But something interesting to also mention is that apothecaries led to women becoming seen as healers and doctors, since it was the only way for them to learn at the time. Women didn't have access to schools, so the only way that they could learn at the time was learning it through other family members, in which higher demand meant they would eventually become apothecaries, doctors, and physicians themselves. I mention this because Savathun is the leader of this throne world, seen as almost a healer of the Hive, and you may not know this, but Savathun is in fact a woman, which is why I think using the word apothecary holds a lot more meaning for this area. Getting back to the gameplay, we do the sword rock mechanic that unlocks a new level to jump up and fight harder enemies. This is seen almost as a final test of strength. The battle fighting wave after wave, Muslim thrall after Muslim thrall, ogre after ogre, it's really a true test of strength. But eventually, we get to the end, we kill the boss, and we get the crystal. Savathun says something to us as we grab the crystal.
Devotion inspires bravery. Bravery inspires sacrifice. And sacrifice.
This is a callback to the speaker during the Red War campaign, when he says the same thing to Gaul, but Savathun leaves the last part out. But I want to discuss that whole part in a little bit when it becomes a lot more important. The rants during this video are far from over. Going back into the Altars of Reflection, we have this little puzzle that I just couldn't get for some reason. I don't know, maybe I am truly retarded. After killing a boss called the Keeper of Memories, we watch a cutscene that literally changes everything.
I saw the end before it happened. My own death, brought on by the separation from my power. And in these final moments, I looked to the sky. Hello, old friend. I've chased you for a long time. First as an enemy, then as a collector, and finally, now, a supplicant. What is it the Guardians say? Devotion inspires bravery. Bravery inspires sacrifice. And sacrifice... Here we are. Wouldn't it be clever of you if after everything, you simply let me die? Oh, what a trick. Elegant. Is that it? If there is an answer, I don't hear it. Because now the world begins to fade.
I'm sorry, bitch, what the fuck? This is literally the most insane cutscene in Destiny. Like, it literally changes everything. The light wasn't stolen, it was given. The Traveler gave Savathun the light. Back to the devotion, bravery, sacrifice quote from before. This goes all the way back to Season of Arrivals. Savathun had studied the light for a long time and did everything to convince the Traveler to choose her. But really, none of this fucking mattered. The Traveler chose her from the start. Devotion, bravery, none of that shit means everything. But why didn't Gaul get the light? What use is Gaul to the Traveler? The reason the Traveler chose Savathun is because the Traveler believes that Savathun can protect it from the Witness. The Traveler isn't concerned with who's good or who's morally just, since even warlords were given the light. Even our character, who has committed mass murder giga-genocide on everyone and everything that isn't human. This building of distrust of the Traveler is coming to a head, and now we can't hide from it anymore.
Incredible that I could forget something like that, isn't it? Such a storied life, erased. The light offers us a fresh start. But if we don't know where we came from, how will we know where to go? I'm so grateful to you for reminding me, for telling my story.
So another big twist. Like, holy fuck, bro, we're getting punch after punch. It turns out that the placement of everything was out in the open and was intentional. Savathun, after dying and being revived by the Traveler, forgot everything from her past life. But this is her throne world. This is her memory altar. We've just been feeding her own memories back to her.
Thanks for the memories, Guardian.
I like this line here too. It has a really nice double meaning. the literal memories we fed back to her, but it's also something you say before parting ways with someone, a show of gratitude and shared experience. Nice touch there. We've been playing into her hand this entire time, and it all makes sense now. Where the fuck do we even go from here? Now we have a meeting with the Vanguard and other important members of the tower. This cutscene is honestly pretty great. I don't think we've ever had Zavala up to this point be so passionate about anything, so it's really great stuff to see him actually have a character and excel in that way.
Our most devious adversary, the one who nearly decimated the last city from within, was dead. And the Traveler resurrected her? This has to be another trick. A lie to fool us into surrendering the Traveler without a fight.
This has been the Traveler's approach from the beginning. The Books of Sorrow detail many civilizations it blessed with the light, then abandoned.
Eris makes a great point here. This has been the Traveler's plan since the start. The Traveler doesn't care about morals or saving humanity. The Traveler cares about itself, and it's cared about itself from the beginning. The Traveler has straight up abandoned multiple civilizations it blessed, including the Fallen. Also, by the way, as mentioned in part 1, I don't know who the cinematographer is, but goddamn, the framing is great. Whoever they got to do this did a fantastic job. Like, genuine props to you, whoever did this stuff. Zavala is justifiably pissed. He's devoted his entire life to this thing and he feels betrayed. He's in denial. But Ikora makes a wonderful point as well. Whether or not the Traveler's changed its mind, or even if it ever did, it doesn't matter. The focus is on protecting humanity. And if Savathûn takes the Traveler, the Guardians lose their light and humanity is completely fucked. So let's kill this bitch. But first, Ikora uses Savathûn's worm and brings it to the crafting table on Mars to see if she can unlock the memories from it. And we get this awesome cutscene, so let's just watch. Ikora sets the dead worm on the table, and after focusing her mind and watching this dial thing swing around, we get this really slick as fuck transition.
These frail siblings will soon be claimed by the light. Unless we claim them first, we will tell the most cunning sibling of Cataclysm, the prophecy of great loss. We will feed her fear, her pride. We will say, young Sathona, the end is coming. A great cataclysm. A god wave. In the sky, there is only death. But salvation lies in the deep. Lead your sisters down. Your coming will spare their short lives. And you will be reborn, the Witch Queen.
They were tricked. The Hive were lied to.
Okay, let's break this down. I'm going to spoil this real quick and reveal that this is the voice of the Witness. While this is the first time we actually hear his voice, this isn't the first time we've heard from them in-game, and that would be during the Shadowkeep cutscene shown right here. Anyway, the Witness speaks of how the Traveler arrived on the Hive homeworld of Fundament, which plans to bless the Hive, at this point known as the Krill. The Witness, however, got to the Krill first. More specifically, got to Savathûn in the form of a worm familiar, one that Savathûn's father found washed up on the shores of her homeworld, and was eventually given to her. This worm was the Witness in secret, speaking into Savathûn's ear about a god wave. Basically, it was the moment that all 52 of Fundament's moons would align, and according to this worm, cause a huge god wave, or this huge wave that would be caused by the Traveler going into the form with all these moons. So instead of looking towards the sky, which threatened to kill it, the Krill should go into the depths and make a deal with the worm gods, who the Witness also manipulated into believing the sword logic. and they would go to create the most devastating force that the universe has ever seen. In reality, there is no actual proof the God Wave ever happened. It was most likely a complete lie from the Witness to scare Savathûn. The Hive, as a collective people, their entire philosophy, their history, it's all a lie, created by the Witness and used as a catastrophic force to destroy the Traveler unknowingly by a single entity. Personally, I think this really builds up the threat of the Witness. We've been fighting the Hive since the start. Some of the biggest threats in this series have been the Hive. We now know that this was all orchestrated by the Witness. Now that's a villain. He didn't create the most devastating force in the universe by forcing them into it. He just manipulated them. He manipulated them into believing that this huge God Wave was real. He manipulated them into believing the sword logic. All of it, every single bit of it, from the beginning was a lie. That's fucking insane. So after talking to Ikora, the memory she saw is going to be used as a weapon against Savathûn. I guess we'll mentally fuck her up or something. I mean, it would completely fuck me up if I found out everything I know is a lie. But regardless, we continue. So now we're on to the final mission, and the ritual is started. And seeing the Traveler here is honestly kind of weird. This series has always been pretty good with the sense of scale, and this gives a pretty good idea of how huge the Traveler really is.
Ikora, the Traveler is already here. I think we're too late.
We're in the domain of the God of Cunning. Things are never what they seem.
I think it's strange that Ikora says this, since we literally could just get a message from outside the throne world telling us that the Traveler is gone because it fucking was gone. It literally got teleported to the throne world. That's the whole point of the ritual. We fight a decent amount of Scorn and Hive in this all-out fight. That's a decent amount of fun using the new abilities that you get and having a lot of fun with that sort of thing. This giant ogre appears and Ikora absolutely incinerates this fucker and opens up the portal. This fucker just used 2 supers back to back and can fly? Why doesn't Ikora do more missions for us? We head across the drawbridge, fucking up more enemies, and start the first encounter. I don't know why we had to do an encounter that lasted as long as this one. It feels like a mandatory roadblock to make the mission longer and include a mechanic. It's not even really used in the boss fight. It's not necessarily a bad encounter per se, I just don't know why it's even here in the first place. I did enjoy it though, it wasn't bad. I had a pretty good time with it.
You're back. What a surprise. Only joking. This throne world is indistinguishable from my own mind, Guardian. Every step taken, every bullet fired, every thought whispered. I keep and count them all. Remember that.
I actually really like this quote here, although I think this quote is a complete lie from Savathûn. It's meant to intimidate us. Why does Bungie always have problems with these fucking floating things? I also like the addition of the bell here, showing us that we're running out of time and we're closing to death's door. What excellent framing. Showing us the pool from the teaser trailer, the Traveler looming right over us. It's great, and it's a perfect setting to end the story. The fight itself is honestly fairly simple. She has a mix of different supers her Hive Lightbearers do, and after bringing her health down enough, you have to kill all 3 Lightbearer Hive units. Thematically, it's good enough for me, but we've been doing this the entire campaign. Something different or new would be nice for this one. But right before we go to crush her ghost, she traps us in place and teleports away to the real final fight. This is twice now this asshole has cucked us with their fucking Hive magic. What an asshole. Savathûn and our ghost have a bit of back and forth. Well, usually I don't like when Ghost talks. This here is honestly fairly decent.
Little ghost, you were asked to accept the darkness, asked to turn against your cousins, asked to defy the will of the Traveler. My ghosts make no concessions. We serve the Traveler's true interests.
No concessions? How stupid do you think I am? When you're sinners, you killed my friends. I remember Oryx and the Taken. I remember what you did to the Awoken and the Dreaming City. Never forget what happened to Sagira, to Osiris. I would die before I ever chose to help the Hive.
I don't mind it as much as I thought I would on repeat. Good job, Ghost. Your talking wasn't a complete waste of time for once. Also, having the island where Savathûn was born and would dive into the deep to be reborn is a really awesome place for the final battle, and also being the place of her eventual death is a really, really awesome touch, bringing it all together. This fight is honestly a lot better and a lot harder than I remembered, so after killing the illusion of Savathûn, we jump into the reflection area and kill Hive Wizard wizards tithing the traveler to the throne world as part of the ritual. After some of the tithes are broken, we show Savathun the memory. Unsurprisingly, this completely fucks her up. Mid-fight, she's trying to deal with us knowing her entire existence up to this point is a lie. These moments are actually pretty nice. While I absolutely love the final boss music, I appreciate the pacing, allowing for a quieter moment while Savathun is going through a midlife crisis and we're fucking up her ritual.
So now you want to play games? Then let's play. So you're the expert now. The expert on me, on the hive, on trickery. Is that what you really think?
She's also very clearly pissed, and it's funny to watch this snarky asshole get angry now that we have the upper hand. It's oddly satisfying. Once the ritual is destroyed, we get to phase 2 of the boss fight, which is a lot more of a one-on-one fight with Savathun. She has a bubble shield around her, and dealing damage is hard, and you have to kill hive wizards to stack the thread cutter buff, which allows us to deal a lot more damage. While it's not a super complicated fight, I feel like at this point Savathun is relying on what's right in front of her powers. The tricks aren't working anymore. She needs to act fast if she wants to win, and this ends up being her downfall. So after defeating this mischievous bitch, we get her final words, and
Isn't this interesting? I miscalculated. So did you, Guardian. So protective of your traveler that you wouldn't let me keep it safe. But the witness is coming. The game is yours to play now. Yours to win or lose. Just don't say I didn't warn you.
are we fucked? Okay, let's break this down. This witness thing, from what we know, tricking Savathun and the Hive, giving Oryx the ability to take, destroying humanity during the collapse, this guy is insanely powerful to say the least. And Savathun knew this. She clearly had a plan to keep the Traveler safe from the witness. Humanity doesn't. And now our potentially only way of surviving another collapse by teaming up with Savathun is gone because we fucking killed her. I also want to mention, Savathun's ghost leaves here at the same time as the Traveler, and I believe that the Traveler actually brought Savathun's ghost with it. It's clear the Traveler chose Savathun for a reason. What good would it be if the Traveler left Savathun's ghost vulnerable? The Traveler knows what we've done to the other Hive ghosts. We would absolutely do the same to this one. Which is why it took Savathun's ghost with it, making sure that Savathun could be brought back later if needed. This is also a useful tool for the writers to bring her back, which they did, and it's for a later date. While we claim to be preparing, I doubt we'll really be ready for what comes next.
Now what?
Now, we prepare for the witness and stop the next collapse.
Speaking of which,
We have seen enough. The children of soul cry out for salvation. You promise them life, but deliver only death, as you have for so many before. Enough. Enough death. Enough life. You have no pieces left to place. The game is over. Do not be afraid. Your pale heart holds the key. This time, there is no escape.
This cutscene was insane when it came out. A look at the first actual new enemy faction or enemy in Destiny since Forsaken, kinda. I'm only saying that because Forsaken had Riven, which we'd never seen a living Ahamkara prior. And also the Scorn are kinda new. They're like half new. I've seen concept art for this guy with the story from a cutscene released later after Lightfall, and it explains what the Witness actually is, and a lot of elements make a lot more sense. Notably the smoky heads and the faded arm looking thing. I don't know how to explain it. It's also so different from everything else, which isn't a bad thing. Everything is made to look battle-hardened or intimidating. The Witness looks like someone who rips apart planets with his mind, not with a blade. It makes for an interesting look and aesthetic that I feel we don't get enough of in Destiny. I want Bungie to get weird and different. This is when shit gets good, when they allow themselves to do something that's weird and that's different and that makes me feel something. Because Destiny for so long has lacked making me feel anything besides boredom and discontent. So this is a great addition. So that's the campaign. I know I usually say, so that's it, at the end of all my Destiny campaigns, but for once I'm not disappointed, which is a good thing. It's a time where I can actually say a Destiny campaign was good and impressed me in ways I didn't expect. Now, is that because the campaign is actually good, or because my standards for Destiny campaigns are so low that the bare minimum is seen as excellent? No, at least I don't think I would. From a gameplay front, yeah, the puzzle mechanics are fun, but I wouldn't say they're complex or required much thinking. The gameplay was decently difficult, sure, but a half-decent build is all you really need to run these missions. So is the gameplay excellent? No, not really. But it was nice to have fetch quests as side content to get new gear and not being part of the main quest for once. It was like Bungie listened. They saw what people hated for so long and made changes to avoid the same bullshit we're so incredibly sick of. The campaign was a decent enough length, with the story that was easy to understand from start to finish, and that didn't have retarded bullshit dialogue, that didn't have as many holes as Swiss cheese, that didn't have gameplay so boring that I skipped most of it. Comparing it to other campaigns I've played recently for FPS games like Warhammer, Space Marine 2, and Halo, how does it hold up? Well, I don't think the dialogue is as good as Halo, and I feel like the Warhammer campaign had a larger variety of locations, more interesting characters, more interesting enemies, more diverse gameplay. The Witch Queen still has a ton of memorable moments that flip so many elements of what we believe to be the core of the story on its head. It brought us a fun final boss, and it gave me the longest script I've ever written on a Destiny campaign to date, at least for now. The Witch Queen is my favorite Destiny campaign, and what I would consider to be the story peak for the series, which does unfortunately mean we only go down from here. I just didn't think we'd go down so hard. Alright, thank you everyone for watching this video, and thank you for the amazing year of 2024. I know the video is a little bit late, but in the year of 2024, I more than doubled my YouTube catalog, I almost doubled my total views, I doubled my revenue, and met cool, interesting YouTubers, I've grown my fan base, and I passed 5,000 subscribers thanks to you, and I couldn't be more grateful for that. So again, thank you. Going into this year, I want to try and release longer content that's more interesting overall, no more short 18-minute video crap. The majority of what's coming out this year is going to be longer and better, and I hope you're willing to deal with longer times between uploads and return. I'll see what I can do to mend the gap. And also, instead of releasing a video every single month, I think I'm going to try and release 12 videos over the course of the entire year. I think that's a good number considering I'm still in school and I'm still in work. But you know, I think that's a number that I can realistically reach. And I think this is a pretty good start to what's to come. I also want to thank my members over the course of creating this video, those being CoalThrall78 and TheGodPharahosRaven. Your support means a lot, especially when the content is becoming harder to make due to school and work, as mentioned before. I also want to mention that besides memberships, the best way to support me is by donating to my streams. I usually do a live stream, sometimes on weekends. I usually kind of go live whenever I feel like it. But between this upload and the last, on screen is everyone who's donated. Your support means so much. Thank you all, I really, really do appreciate it. We get up to some pretty funny shit, so if you want to see some definitely super high quality streaming content, make sure you tune in. Here's a clip from a stream a little while ago. I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm getting the fuck out of here. This place is...
What a fucking idiot, are you serious? Really? Really, Nanoc, really? Really? Really.
I couldn't fucking see anything.
Death to paranoia.
Anyway, that's pretty much it for me. The content train doesn't stop, and I'll see you in a little while. And until then, thank you for watching. Stay safe. Bye.